I'll be taking a session on workshop on research methodology. In fact, in the first sessions, you have seen that how the research takes place for the beginners. Now it is going to be the second part of it. So what I am going to do is, see, actually there are large number of topics on which basically I take sessions. But today I'm going to probably, there are sessions on research methodology, session on writing research questions and hypotheses with Dr. Raka mentioned about it, mastering a research design program, mastering a review of literature, measuring the altometric for research, using the AI tools for the research, and then improvising the research communication. See, this is an entire package of generally program on workshop on research when we conduct, which is almost a whole day program. I generally conduct. Some of these tools are basically hands-on. It is not, and really you have to come down and do the hands-on practices and all. That is what is basically required. But I'll start with the first one, and if the time permits, which Ambuj will tell me, then I will go for the next one. So my first session is mastering a research methodology. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
So it is written mastering research methodology.
Correct.
The picture.
Correct.
So as my previous speakers, Dr. Projesh Roy, Dr. Raka, they already mentioned research is what? See, frankly speaking, let me tell you all the participants from my own research journey. Research does not mean and search. Research means actually do a discovery, which is completely unknown. That is called as research. So you need to understand this. This is extremely important in today's context. People generally, get mixed up and all. It is not research, and search. No, you do a thing, but it's not like that. But it's really you have to come up. So it's a journey of discovery, from asking the right questions to uncovering the evidence-based answers, and which basically shape the world. Now the foundation is why research matters. Before we explore methods and tools, we must understand the deeper purpose of a research. There should be a purpose. And today, most of the time when I, talk to my students and my, research fellow members and all, not only from the library information science, but other categories also. हमें DR चाहिए, डॉक्टर बनना है. हमारे नाम के सामने बहुत दिन तक मिस्टर लिखा है, मिस लिखा है, अब हमको DR बनना है. Now let me tell you friends, if a word DR, it comes as a prefix of your name, it brings in a responsibility also. You have to understand that responsibility. So the purpose of research, why a rigorous inquiry, is the cornerstone of the human progress. Or research, as Dr. Projesh was saying, in the ancient research also, if they won't have done the research today, we won't have been there. So you can imagine, they never had any kind of AI technologies or other kind of technologies. But in fact, they have done the research and brought the technology into the field for the benefit of the society, for the benefit of the people. So that is what basically an undiscoverable component is basically the research is. So what is research? As Dr. Raka mentioned, research is a systematic investigation, a design to establish facts, test ideas, and reach new evidence-backed conclusions. So the most important thing is that the major pillars of research is ask. You have to formulate a meaningful questions and worth exploring. You have to investigate and gather evidence through rigorous methods. And you have to conclude and draw defensible data-informed conclusions. Now, the purpose of research, you need to, why we are doing that research? Why? You have to understand the phenomena. You have to illuminate the complex forces which are shaping our world. Or probably you have to solve some very critical problems. You have to inform an evidence-based decision-making in practice. Or you may have to drive an innovations. You have to bring in new theories and some breakthrough discoveries to bring it a complete innovations into the system. And the other is build knowledge, expand the collective understanding within any field. So that is the purpose of research is. The research process is a roadmap. It's a complete roadmap. You have problem, you have question, you have methods, you have to collect, and you have to analyze those data. And each phase of this research process builds on the last. A well-structured roadmap keeps your inquiry focused, rigorous, and ultimately impactful. That's a very important area of research processes. Now, your path to insight, every great discovery begins with a single step, a question worth asking. So, as Dr. Raka was mentioned, because she is a hardcore researcher from IIT Bombay and currently with IIT Kharagpur, she was mentioning, what is that first question you are going to ask yourself when you are going to step in the research process? What is that first question? And that question cannot be, let me tell you, friends, that question cannot be given by your chat GPT. That question will be coming from your insight, from your own intelligence. No AI can replace your human intelligence. So that question has to come from your side. So there are two pillars in a research methodology process. One is a qualitative, and adversaries is the quantitative. Research methodology rests on two complementary traditions, each powerful in its own right, and each is essential to a complete understanding of the world. Now, quantitative research, it is the power of numbers. It's the power of numbers. So quantitative research process on numerical data, statistical analysis to measure, test the relationships, and generalize the findings across the populations. So your question should start with some of the prefixes I have given you here for your understanding is how many, how much, to what extent. So you can imagine all these 3 points brings in numbers somewhere. Test pre-existing hypothesis with structured instruments and produces results that can be replicated and scaled up. That is what is your quantitative research, which is nothing but a number gaming. So key characteristic of a quantitative research would be, it would be objective. It strives for an unbiased, standardized measurement free from personal influence. Now, let me give you, there are two words are very important here. Unbiased. So there is no biasness, no favoritism here. If something is coming negative, it has to be a negative one. You can't just do it. And another is standardization measurement. And this is, and let me tell you that since I have handled more than 21 research projects, and the most important thing is the standardization valuation, standardization is a very important number. It's a very important component related to the numbers. It is very important. Then comes your deductive, begins with an established theory and test. It again collected the data. The third component is structured, uses predefined variables, instruments, and protocols throughout your entire research process. Throughout your entire process. Variables, instruments, protocols throughout the process. And then comes your generalization, where seeks to apply findings beyond the sample to broader populations. So these are the 4 major characteristics of a quantitative research. Let me give you an example of a quantitative research, which I have taken from a real time. Say, for example, you're doing a study on screen time and the sleep in teenagers. So what would be the research question then in that case? I'm giving you an example. Does increased daily screen time correlate with reduced sleep duration in teenagers? So this is a very fundamental question. So the method is nothing but you have to carry out a survey. The survey is distributed to 500 high school students, capturing their screen hours and their sleep hours. And then you bring in the correlationship. Okay. The analysis is statistical correlation analysis to determine whether the strength and the direction of the relationship is influenced by other. This is where the quantitative analysis takes place. That is why it is very important. Now comes your qualitative research. Now, quantitative is mostly on numbers, but whereas qualitative research is mostly on the depth of understanding. Qualitative research explores experiences, perceptions, and meanings. It seeks to understand the why and the how behind a human phenomena. And it generates rich and descriptive insights and new hypotheses. So it explores context, nuances, and individual perspective, particularly powerful for sensitive or complex social topics. Now, let me give you the key characteristics of a qualitative research is subjective. It was objective in quantitative, here it is subjective. Explores individuals' lived experiences and personal viewpoints. Inductive is what? Builds new theories organically from the observed patterns and the data. And why it is flexible? Adapts in real time to emerging themes and unexpected insights. And the contextual is focuses on deep understanding within specific environments and the communities. Now let me give you an example of a qualitative example. Suppose you are doing a research, a student engagement in online learning. So the research question is, how do university students perceive their engagements in online environments? So that's the question. So the method is in-depth interviews. In-depth interviews with 20 students exploring their feelings, challenges, and engagement strategies. And then you come up with an analysis, the thematic analysis to surface common patterns, all student experiences and all. So numbers tell a story. Experiences tell a deeper meaning. So the most powerful research combines both the perspectives, both qualitative as well as quantitative. Qualitative methods, each qualitative method offers a unique lens for exploring the richness of human experience, from intimate interviews to immersive ethnographic field work, where you basically pick up the primary data from the fields. Like, for example, what is the methods of in-depth interviews? One-on-one conversations designed to explore the topics with nuances and depth. So ideal for understanding individual lived experiences and personal perspectives. Like, for example, a therapist interviewing a patient about childhood trauma to understand its long-term psychological effects on adult behavior. So that's an interview, in-depth interviews are there. Another is focus groups. A moderated discussion with a small, purposely selected group, best for gathering diverse opinions, exploring good dynamics, and generating ideas through interactions. So that's called a focus group research. So, for example, a marketing team running a focus group research with target consumers to get candid feedback on a new product concept before the launch. And let me tell you that many times it has happened. In fact, I remember when Walters Kluwer were publishing was coming out with a new product, they conducted this focus groups interviews. I had almost 2 to 2.5 hours interactions with their entire team to understand the cognitive behavior of all the medical doctors when I was the chief librarian of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and how the behavior of the behavior of the doctors changes over when the patient interacts on when they come across the resources in that particular field. So I had to tell them about this, and they were keeping a note of each one of them. So I have figured such kind of a thing. Suppose it is in ethnographic research. This is a very, very popular. Currently, we have an ethnographic research in Ashoka, where immersive observation of a culture or a social group within its natural setting. And it is best for understanding the behavior, the social structure, and the cultural practices from inside out. Not outside in, but inside out. Like, for example, an anthropologist living with a remote indigenous tribe for a year to document daily life, their rituals, and traditions. And let me tell you, friends, I have done this with the Seharia tribes in Madhya Pradesh. With the same research I have done for one of my projects. Then comes your case study methods, a very hardcore research. An in-depth investigation of a single individual or a group or an event or a community. That is best for providing a detailed, holistic understanding of a specific, often unique phenomena. The example is a medical researcher studying the long-term recovery process of a patient who survived a rare and previously undocumented disease. And let me tell you that these kinds of cases are very, very important. In fact, in the medical librarianship, such kind of cases are extremely important for the doctors to understand and all. So this gives you a holistic understanding on those characters. Like some of the, maybe in the future, if I get a chance to take some sessions on SRL, like systematic review of literature and doing meta-analysis, where such kind of a thing, how, say, for example, a neonatalysis, disease can be looked into of a child of through SRL and Cochrane databases using and meta-analysis, framing out the questions and all those things I will be explaining. So that's a very, very different area of work. But even in the case studies also, you have to really go very deep down into each and every subject or an object which is there for you. So the thing is that uncovering the hidden narratives, like qualitative methods go beyond surface level data to reveal the stories behind the statistics. Quantitative methods in action. Quantitative methods bring precision, scale to research, enable findings to be measured, tested, and applied across large populations. So that is where the quantitative methods is in action. Now, when you do a surveys on the questionnaire, now let me tell you, friends, that when I talk to all my PhD students and other researchers, when I talk to them, see, this is a very fundamental area. Collecting structured data from a sample of individuals using a standardized set of questions, ideal for measuring the attitudes, opinions, and behaviors at scale. For example, a government census collecting demographic data from millions of citizens to inform the national policy and the resource allocation. You conduct a nationwide, survey questionnaire is floated. Or there is a research which is completely on experimental, where manipulating one or more variables to observe their effect one on another. So the gold standard for establishing cause and effect relationship with a controlled precision. In fact, in scientific research, as Dr. Raka was mentioning, this thing, cause and effect relationship, is a very important. There you don't have the fixed data. So they will be experimenting, say, for example, they are into drug discovery. So they have a one molecular design, and they are working on the each and every compositions of the different compounds which are there, organic compounds which are there. Even a slight twist, I know there is in organic chemistry, there is a slight twist, a resonance twist of one of the molecule of say, for example, on C6A, on benzene molecule. It can give a completely a different ball game. It can give you a complete different discovery altogether. So they keep on doing a heat and trial method to come up with that solution. So a pharmaceutical company testing a new drug by comparing outcomes in a treatment group against a placebo group control group. So it's a very important for them to do such kind of experimental research. Correlational studies, so examining the statistical relationship between two or more variables, which is useful for identifying the patterns and associations, but critical caveat is that correlation is not causation. For example, a study finding a correlation between ice cream sales and crime rates. So both driven by a third factor is warm weather. So it's a very difficult research work to be done on those areas. So in the warm weathers, why ice cream sales goes up, vis-a-vis the crime rates also goes up. People go out, they keep their doors and everything open and all, and probably it does have a negative effect on that. Content analysis, systematically analyzing the content of text, audio, or visual media to identify the patterns, themes, frequencies in communication over time. For example, analyzing thousands of newspaper articles to track how frequently the climate change keywords appeared across a decade of journalism. So you bring out that entire, which is basically called on a semantic search. You do it, and based on the semantic ontology, you use those words in your all digital newspapers archives and take out that how many times the climate change word has come up. And even you can also, break it down to different levels of climate change also. Whether it is an adaptation, whether it is a mitigation, whether it is an impact on the water or the impact on the sea, or it is impact on the biodiversity, impact on the forestry, impact on the animals, impact on the insects, many things could be done. So it is very important to do a very absolute content analysis. Mapping the landscape of data. Quantitative methods transform raw data into patterns, revealing truths invisible to the naked. So the best of the both worlds, like mixed methods research. People mostly nowadays go for mixed methods research. What happens when numbers and narrative unite? So maybe you have quantitative, you have qualitative, so both comes together. Mixed methods research offers the most complete picture of complex human phenomena. Now here I want to give you a declaration here that unless and until you are sure, then you should not go for mixed method research. So what is a mixed method research? Please try to understand that. Then you can, put yourself into the great ocean of mixed method. Mixed method research combines qualitative and quantitative approaches within a single study. strategically leveraging the strength of each to yield a richer, more comprehensive understanding than either could provide alone. So it is particularly powerful when one method's findings raise questions that only the other method can answer to it. So then only your mixed method research comes. So if you see this Venn diagram, which I have shown, see, one is explores experiences, meanings, context, and generates a hypothesis. Whereas other one, it measures the tests, generalizes, and validates. And when both come together, integrated to produce a comprehensive understanding and brings out the coherence, the relationship between the two qualitative and quantitative observations. Why use a mixed methods? So the key attributes of that: triangulation. Triangulation means corroborate findings from different methods to strengthen the validity. Complementarity, use one method to elaborate or clarify findings from the other. Development, let findings from one phase directly inform and shape the next. And the next is your initiation, uncover contradictions or paradoxes that inspire entirely new inquiries. Now, evaluating a new educational program, say I'm just giving an example of mixed method. So quantitative is survey on learning, the gains and the test scores. So that is your quantitative data. So what is qualitative? Interviews with the students and teachers. And when you are combining both, you come to an integration, use insights to explain the quantitative results. So by combining the text code data with the personal narratives, researcher could explain not just whether the program worked, but why it did or it didn't work. In fact, some months back, I was taking a session on the same topic, which is for some external body in Saudi Arabia, and it was on lambda analytics. I was talking more towards learning analytics and teaching analytics, basically on the same things where the mixed methods have been used. Now, synergy in research. So when quantitative scale meets the qualitative there, the result is understanding that is both broad and it is profound. Now, designing your research. So key consideration is design. Great research doesn't happen by accident. Please remember. To a thoughtful design choices at the outset determine the quality, validity, and impact of everything that follows. And that is what I said that, in fact, when you've seen my menu of programs which I conduct, there is an entire session on research design. I do a complete session on research design on that. So defining your research goals, here I will be giving in a much more comprehensive, talk on that. So defining your research goals, start by asking, what do you want to achieve? Your goal shapes every subsequent methodical decision. Explore, understand a new or under-examined phenomena. Identify the causes and mechanisms behind events. Predict, forecast outcomes based on patterns and models, and then in your influence. So use findings to shape policy of an inquiry requiring quantitative evidence. Now, crafting a research question. If you are in a qualitative question, so begin with how or why. Because in your research design, it will help you to explore the meaning, process, and experience in depth. But in quantitative questions, begin with what is the relationship or to what extent, designed to measure and test. So a well-crafted research question is clear, focused, and answerable within your scope and resources. It acts as your North Star, guiding every decision from method selections to the final analysis of your research product. So spend more time on your questions than you think you need to. Poorly defined questions are the most common source of research failure. If you have not defined your questions in a proper way, your research is going to be into doldrums. Understanding your participants, who you want to study, is just as important how you study them. Like demographics and context, so age, location, culture, background, which shape the responses and interpretations. Potential biases, self-selection, social desirability can skew a data. Designed to mitigate them. And then method fit. Some groups respond better to surveys, others open up in interviews. Know your audience. The best methods are once you find out your participants will engage with honestly and openly. So tools of the trade is research software and platforms. So choosing the right tools, your research capacity, transforming raw data into meaningful, shareable insights with greater speed and accuracy. And some of the very interesting survey tools, I'm sure there are a large number of survey tools are there in the market. The right survey tools platform balances the reach, usability, and data integrity. So when you are doing it, so you need to look at the cost, the data privacy compliances, the participants filtering, and then branding options. Like SurveyMonkey is a versatile and most widely used, with robust filtering options are there. People, instead of, because since here people have to spend money on SurveyMonkey, so people have come back to Google Forms, which is free, fast, and integrates with seamless with Google Sheets. But let me tell you that there are certain features. There are very certain features which are certain analytics, I would say, which you will get from SurveyMonkey. You may not get it for Google Forms. And then Forms is Qualtrics. So Enterprise, great tool with advanced logic and analytics. So it has got a both free and a priced version for Qualtrics. Data analysis software like SPSS, Stata, which is for quantitative analysis, R programming, Excel and all. I think my previous speakers have already spoken to it. And if you're doing a qualitative tools, it could be NVivo, Atlas, MaxDA. So these are basically used. MaxDA is a very extensive, it is a very powerful tool which is used for mixed methods or collaborative features. It's a very powerful tool actually, MaxDA. If sometimes when I'll be taking sessions on this AI tool applications and all, probably some of this platform I will showcase. Visualization tools is a very important thing, and I think in today's context, all researchers should be very well come up. In fact, in Ambuj will be mentioning that we will be coming up with new webinars on these areas, and where you will get trained into Tableau, Power BI, or in Flourish. So these are some of the very powerful visualization tools, which is very important for communicating your research very effectively in your research thesis. Empowering your insights, the right tools don't just process the data, they transform it into knowledge that moves people and changes the minds. In fact, when the researchers look at it from a representation point of view, they really like it that you have given something very interesting and all. Ethical considerations in research, like rigorous ethics, are not a formality. They are the foundation of trustworthy research. Every participant deserves dignity, transparency, and protection, and that is what Dr. Prajesh was mentioning. And please remember, as per the University Grants Commissions, your research thesis should be less than always 10%. So currently, please remember I am on the board of Turnitin, and please remember, and wherever you are using your chat GPT or AI based tools, I'll warn you that these tools which I use 3 tools in my university. One is your Turnitin, obviously, then I have ER job, and then third one is drill bit. Now, let me tell you that there is no compromise to it. So your research writing should start from the first day, and you should start writing from the very first day, because I have seen that once your synopsis is done and you become a research scholar, you always take a relaxing back seat. You forget that unless and until you provide a solid research thesis which comes out from your head and heart, that which makes a research output a very niche product in the market, and people will know you from that point of view. Informed consents: participant must fully understand the research and voluntarily agree to participate also without pressure or coercion. Consent must like purpose, why the study is being conducted, the procedure, what participants will be asked to do, risk and benefits, potential impacts of participation, and maintaining the confidentiality, how their data will be protected. All these things should be when you are taking the data, primary data from your participants and all. Confidentiality and anonymity is very much required. Anonymity, no identifying information is collected at any point, so participants cannot be traced back to their responses under any circumstances. So if you have done your questionnaires and all, please scrap it after you have your PhD thesis is completed, or keep it in your archive or somewhere, personal archive and all. Identifying information may be collected, but it is stored securely and never disclosed publicly or to third parties. Understanding the distinction is essential. Both protect parties, but they operate differently and have different implications for your research design, storage practices, and reporting. And always apply the highest level of protection your research design can accommodate. Avoid bias in research. Recognize your biases. Acknowledge how your background and assumptions may have influenced your research. Design for objectivity. Use standardized instruments and blind review process where possible. Triangulate findings. Corroborate the results using multi-part data source or methods. And reflect, continuously revisit your assumptions at every stage of the research process. Protecting your participants. Ethical research builds trust with participants, with the academic community, and with the public. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Even experienced researchers stumble. Knowing where the dangers lie in the first step to navigating them successfully. So the pitfalls are, these are the 4 pillars I have identified. Unclear research questions. So impact is unfocused research yields inconclusive, unusable results. So the solution is invest in significant time in refining your questions before starting and test them with peers. The pitfall is that wrong method selection. May impact collected data falls to answer the question you actually care about. So solution is that understand the strengths and limitations of each method before committing anything. Another pitfall is sampling bias. So the impact is findings cannot be generalized to your intended population. The solution is use appropriate sampling. Probably you have taken 500 data, out of which those 100 data you will collect from your sample. That best sample may be for a pilot study that has to be selected very appropriately. So sampling strategies and ensure your sample is representative of the entire 500 data. And the pitfall, poor data analysis. So the impact is that misinterpretation of findings leads to flawed, misleading conclusions. And the solution is that learn analysis techniques thoroughly or collaborate with a qualified expert. Navigating the challenges, every pitfall provided is a step closer to research that is credible, impactful, and worth sharing. Case study deep dive, so real world applications, like for example, theory meets practice. These three case studies demonstrate how research methodology choice translate into genuine discoveries and real world impact. So the first case study is remote work and employee well-being. This is the one case study I have picked up. Remote working during COVID time, you have seen people are remotely working from their work from home, and employees well-being. So there is a mixed methods approach. The methodologies, the survey, the in-depth interviews were taken. The quantitative is surveyed employees on job satisfaction, stress level, and work-life balance scores. Qualitatively interviewed remote workers to explore personal challenges and coping mechanisms. And the outcome is identified key well-being drivers and generated organizational recommendations. The second case study was on consumer adoption of sustainable products. The method is qualitative, like also it is on focus groups. The focus is on exploring consumer perceptions, motivations, and barriers to choose eco-friendly products. So the outcome is revealed that perceived effectiveness and clear labeling were the most critical drivers directly informing marketing strategy and product packaging decisions. The third case study could be a public health campaign. Now, in this public health campaign, could be quantitative, controlled experiment. So compared with the health outcomes in a community exposed to a campaign versus a mass control group with no exposure at all. Demonstrated a statistically significant reduction in disease incidence in the campaign group, justifying its national rollout and funding approval. So research in action in these cases reveal a universal truth. The right methodology, rigorously applied, produces findings that genuinely change things. That is what is research in action. So the future of research methodology, research is evolving faster than ever. New technologies are expanding. What's possible, opening frontiers that previous generation of researchers could only imagine. So emerging trends shaping the research, like AI, machine learning, big data. I myself is involved in hardcore research on citizen science, and VR and AR research is also coming up in a very, very big way. So your research journey begins now. You need a powerful toolkit, research methodology, like this kinds of sessions and all. Research methodology equips you to uncover the truth, challenge assumptions, and drive a meaningful progress. Apply the principles. By understanding and thoroughly applying these methods, you can conduct the research that genuinely matters and embrace the discovery. Every question is an invitation. Every answer opens a door. The journey of inquiry is one worth taking. So thank you very much. Thanks for your patient listening. I'll be happy to answer. Over to Ambuj, please.